All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'll jump through some of the housekeeping slides and get everyone started. And then Shannon will jump in after I go through some of that. So thank you so much for joining us. This is Streamline Your Marketing Workflows with AI Copilot with Jasper. And we've had Jasper on webinars a few times. You may have seen Jasper at some of our other events, and I'm excited just to see what is new and different. So if you can just jump ahead to the next slide. My name is Kathy McPhillips. I am the Chief Growth Officer here at the Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute, and I am so pleased to welcome Shannon Milner, who is a Solutions Engineer at Jasper. And she's going to be going through some things that I love when the product solutions teams are on these webinars, because you have this really great understanding of the ins and outs of these tools and the whys and the hows. It's just such a great combination. So we're just thrilled to have you with us today. And before you jump in, I just want to talk to our attendees a little bit about what's happening at the Marketing AI Institute if you are new to us. So we are a media education and event company focused on making AI approachable and actionable for marketers since 2016. So we've been doing this for a little while. I've been with the company about 3.5 years now. So the media company we've got a blog, webinars like we have today, research, podcast. If you listen to the Artificial Intelligence show with Paul and Mike, you're familiar with this. We've got a book, a growing community, 8,000 members in our Slack community, and then a weekly newsletter. Our events, we just finished our annual MACON, our Marketing AI conference. Our 5th one just took place a few weeks ago. We've got some virtual summits, and then we've got a lot of education in the form of some free courses, our Intro to AI class, piloting AI, scaling AI. Wherever you are on your AI journey, we have something for you. So this webinar is part of our webinar series. Shannon, could you just jump to the next one, please? So we do this really whenever there's a good topic. We aim for once a month, and sometimes like next in October, we have 3. So it's just an exciting time. So on our website, if you go to the resources drop down, you'll see the webinars, and we have them all listed as we post them on our website. You can jump into this one page and see everything and register for as many of them as you like. And then we will post them on demand at the completion of each of the webinars. And then just 2 quick things about some of our events. We have our next big event is our AI for Agency Summit taking place on November 20th. It's a virtual event. If you are at an agency or you work with an agency, it's a great way to see how agencies can start pivoting the work they're doing, learning new capabilities, using AI in their own agencies to help them grow, to help you grow and stay relevant and stay, AI can take over a lot of things, and we want agencies to thrive in this new age. Most of our team has agency experience, and the thought of, some of those places not thriving in this area just makes us really sad. So we hope that agencies can adapt as we are all adapting. And then lastly, a quick plug for MACON. We have opened registration for MACON 2025, October 14th through the 16th, and we would love to see all of you there. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Shannon. I'm going to stick on camera so I can chat with you about this as you're going through everything, but I'm thrilled to have you with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy. And thank you everyone for being here today. By way of introduction, again, my name's Shannon. I'm on our solutions engineering team. And a big part of my role, as Kathy alluded to, is working in both pre and post sale to help deliver custom solutions and to provide custom demonstrations that really address customers' unique and specific challenges and bottlenecks. But really looking forward to giving you all an overview of Jasper as a solution, talking a little bit about our perspective in the market and our vision for the future of marketing. Again, I always like to just say thanks again for being here. We know that everyone who's joined is likely short on bandwidth. We appreciate your perspective, your attendance, and we are excited to talk to you about marketing and how we can start to address some pretty big challenges that marketers are facing, and how we think about driving our customers towards success when utilizing AI. Speaking of our customers, they are at the center of pretty much everything that we do as an organization, which is why I wanted to start by sharing a little bit about our mission statement. For a little bit of background, we are a company that's built by marketers for marketers specifically. And at the end of the day, that's the entire reason why our company exists, is really to elevate all marketing and marketers with the power of AI. This is really what guides our company strategy, the decisions, the trade-offs that we make every single day. And we pride ourselves on really staying true to this mission. And so as the market evolves and as our product evolves, we're really looking to build a system that helps marketers stand out and scale and succeed with AI. As the market has evolved, we've noticed, especially in the last 6 to 12 months, that our customers and their needs have also evolved. And in turn, our platform has evolved as well. So I want to take a few minutes here and share our perspective just on the market at large and how that's informing our approach. I'm certainly not going to be the first to tell you how game-changing AI can be, especially for marketing use cases. And I'm sure that this audience knows better than anyone else that marketing is also in the midst of a pretty major transformation. Thinking about how cookie policies are changing, we know that SEO is changing, social media seems to be constantly changing and evolving. And to Kathy's earlier point, the role of agencies and creative is also changing. And when I talk to marketing leaders, there's a pretty common set of problems and drivers that we hear. The first is that, they need to build better engagement, but it's challenging and difficult to figure out how to actually scale personalization. Marketers need to build more differentiated brands, but oftentimes creative teams are bogged down with repetitive and tactical work. And additionally, there's a constant pressure to drive ROI and results. But we know that oftentimes campaigns are expensive and results can be somewhat unpredictable. And probably the thing that I hear most frequently from marketing leaders is this that I don't have enough bandwidth and I don't have enough headcount. And marketers are consistently being asked to do more with less. What's great is that all of these are solvable with AI. And so it's no wonder that marketers are really starting to lean in and prioritize AI adoption. McKinsey actually estimates that the potential productivity lift that can be achieved with AI across the marketing function represents 10% of global functional spend, and that comes out to $463 billion. Additionally, we see that 63% of CMOs plan to invest at least $10 million per year in AI over the next 3 years. And so that's pulling directly from Boston Consulting Group as well. So it's a pretty widespread and known issue that folks are certainly thinking about. Kathy, anything that you'd add here? Is this resonating on your end?
Yeah, we did our State of Marketing AI that we just published last month, and we're seeing a lot of the same things as far as we know there's opportunities. People want to do more, but they're just kind of paralyzed with how do I get started? When do I find the time? And I know that Jessica on your team is working with companies to say, okay, here's the tool is important. Obviously, the tool is very important, but it's finding your processes, finding the people, finding the right way to scale, onboard, train, educate, just so it does go, the right way. Because any tool, if you don't onboard it the right way, it's not going to be successful. So finding the ways that you can integrate this into what all you're doing, finding these cases, finding the problems, working together to onboard the tool, that's going to solve so many of these things you're talking about.
Absolutely. And another plug for Jessica, if anyone in the audience doesn't follow her, a great resource in the marketing AI space. She helped pilot an AI council at VMware, and she's got a lot of just fantastic thought leadership content that she shares all the time. So certainly recommend giving her a follow. She's also just a wonderful human. So definitely look into some of the posts that she makes and some of the areas where she's spoken.
Yeah, and Jessica, Claire's on it. I'd say Jessica, drop in your LinkedIn, but Claire just did. So, Claire.
Cool.
And we have a question, but maybe we can wait for this a little bit. But Laura's asking, what's the best way to start using AI in product launches? Hire an agency that uses it or implement AI internally?
Yeah, it's a great question. We can talk a little bit today about product launches and how a lot of our customers are thinking about using AI and Jasper specifically in-house. And so I think there's probably an area to bring some of that work in-house if you're experiencing delays with agencies or things like that. So there's a couple different ways, but we can certainly talk about how you can bring some of that work into Jasper and help accelerate the creation of content for launches. Cool.
Excellent. Yeah.
Perfect. And I think this is a perfect segue. I think this slide just paints a really great picture of just how much marketers are being tasked with, whether it's for campaigns or product launches, as Laura had mentioned. And our CMO is really passionate and talks about this problem all the time. And she specifically felt it at her last company, where oftentimes campaign teams, they need to deliver a pretty large and significant bill of materials for any one campaign. That can include things like images, videos. It can include things like copy for different segments, for different regions. It can even include copy for different languages. And our CMO talks about how scaling all of this out for one campaign alone was such a big undertaking that they actually turned to AI to help scale this out. And I think there's probably a lot of marketing folks out in the audience today that are likely feeling that pain. And it's a really specific problem that only marketers are feeling.
I feel this in my core. Like just like everything just is more and more and more. And there's so many parts of, just everything needs scale. And there's just so many things we're doing that just take so much time,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing your 2 cents there, Kathy. And in addition to the scaled outputs, we're also hearing that there needs to be a lot of content tailored to specific audiences, and marketers need high quality and consistency in the content that's being produced. Content marketers aren't just creating materials that are shared internally, and brands have typically a really high quality bar that horizontal solutions really struggle to meet and generate outputs that can consistently meet that bar. And then lastly, Kathy, you also alluded to this, but marketing folks really need AI to be integrated into their workflows in order for it to be truly adopted. And marketers are really craving the subject matter expertise that has both the AI and marketing prowess to workshop and connect marketing workflows directly to specific KPIs. And that's why at Jasper, we believe that a successful AI transformation really does require a purpose-built approach. And ultimately, that's why our founders built Jasper, which is the purpose-built generative AI solution for marketers. Jasper, and we'll take a look at all of this today, but Jasper delivers 100 plus out-of-the-box marketing workflows that are across any different marketing function connected directly to KPIs. And these purpose-built workflows really help guide marketers through success right from the gate, essentially. And with over 100 plus out-of-the-box integration options, we've got a really flexible set of APIs. Jasper allows for the creation of custom workflows as well. These can easily be extended into other tools. So whether it's HubSpot for a lifecycle marketer, Salesforce if you're a campaign marketer, Contentful for a digital marketer, Jasper allows for marketers to adopt AI faster. Additionally, when we think about this high quality bar, especially at volume, we'll take a look at some of the features that allude to Jasper's brand control, and that includes things like our style guide, our grammar checker, as well as our brand voice, along with Jasper's relatively new AI image suite that allows marketers to really scale content, across multiple different channels for campaigns, which means that ultimately marketing teams and creative teams are able to spend less time on tactical work, less time on backlog, can actually focus on building differentiated brands. And then Jasper, we've got a really thriving community that's baked into the platform, which not only enables users to connect with like-minded individuals, but also allows users to explore common use cases. So just important to note there as well. And when we think about our platform, we like to think of it in 4 layers. And Jasper is an integrated platform, ultimately powering AI success. But when we think about this bottom layer, this trust layer, this is really encompassing of our best-in-class language models that we work with. So we're LLM agnostic. So we work with multiple language models under the hood. We've got enterprise-grade security, governance mechanisms, as well as compliance. We also have this amazing context and knowledge layer. This is actually where a lot of Jasper's special sauce is, and we'll take a look at this today. We've got marketing best practices built into the tool. We allow folks to incorporate their company knowledge and company brand voice. And this really makes sure that every LLM output is actually fine-tuned specifically to your unique needs and to the marketing use case as well. This next layer, I know we've talked a little about applications. This really encompasses the 100 plus ready to go workflows. We'll take a look at this in the demo today. That allows you to complete a lot of the really common mundane marketing tasks. And then workflows is really taking that a step further and allowing you to really scale out and integrate AI wherever you might be working to really stand out and scale. And last slide here, when we think about proven success, we do have a roster of over 100,000 customers, and that includes nearly 20% of the Fortune 500. What they all have in common, even though they're using Jasper for a number of different unique use cases, but they're all leaning into Jasper to elevate their marketing in some capacity. So with that being said, Kathy, unless there's anything else from your end, excited to now transition into more of the demo portion of the presentation today.
I was typing. Yeah, when you said last slide, I'm like, don't leave. We're just getting started. So I don't want people to jump off thinking this was the end of this. But, so we offered two types of webinars at the Marketing AI Institute, a thought leadership webinar, and then more of an AI in action. And this was one that when we were prepping for this, we were saying, like, people just love seeing the technology. We'd love to go in there and show us some use cases, show us some examples. So I'm really excited that you're going to spend some time doing that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll spend actually a bulk of the remainder of the time actually in the pool. So let's actually go ahead and get started here. So to set up the demonstration, want to share a little bit of context. I'm going to show you today a day in the life of a content marketer. Let's assume that I'm that content marketer for the demo today, and imagine that it's me and I'm on a really small team. It's me, it's the graphic designer, and it's my direct manager on that team. Also important to note that we work with an external partner that's helping with some of the search and paid copy work. And Shannon, as you'll see, is responsible for creating social, web, as well as event content. And Shannon, for today's example, works for a large automotive group that oversees multiple different brands. But what this means for Shannon is that she's got a very busy day managing many different audiences across their portfolio. What we're going to take a look at today is how she can leverage Jasper to help make her team look and feel bigger than it already is, to ultimately drive the goals for the business. So that's get more foot traffic in dealerships, to test drive cars, and ultimately purchase vehicles. So let's actually transition now into the demonstration, and we can go ahead and get started. Now, typically what would happen in Shannon's world is she'll often get these highly technical toolkits directly from manufacturers. Today, the example that she's received is a highly technical toolkit, or you can think of this as a spec sheet from Subaru regarding their upcoming 2025 Outback launch. Shannon's managing multiple different brands, but what this means is that really there's not enough time in the day to become a subject matter expert about the Outback or any of the single vehicles that Subaru sells, not to mention the other brands that she's managing. What Shannon is going to do is ask Jasper to help review some of this technical information about the Outback and create some marketing-friendly messaging by asking Jasper to create this key messaging brief for an upcoming campaign. She's going to need multiple different assets for different channels. And so effectively what you'll see now is that Shannon is going to lean on Jasper to help accelerate the research process. What Jasper is doing, you'll see he's analyzing the document. It's looking through some of this pre-approved communication from the subject matter expert, in this case, directly from the manufacturer, and has helped create this key messaging brief. And this is really what that can start to look like with just a simple prompt. you'll see that Jasper has helped extract the target audience, identify a tone and style, and you'll see has even pulled out some of the key specs or technical specs of the vehicle.
So is
Now,
that messaging brief, did you say here, did Jasper have a template of what a messaging brief should look like?
it didn't know. And that's kind of one of the things to call out, right? When we think about what makes Jasper unique, it's that this is a solution that's really fine-tuned and purpose-built for marketers. So when you give a marketing-specific prompt, in this case, through the chat experience, it's going to have a little bit more context on what you're looking for versus if you were using a traditional language model. Great question, Kathy. But I do want to acknowledge here as well that likely many of the folks in the audience today, or maybe Kathy, even you, have used similar tools to get some of this work done. And I want to call this out because this is typically where generic or horizontal AI solutions stop. But this is really just the beginning of what Jasper can start to do. And so, yes, while I did lean on Jasper to help synthesize the information and the data that was provided and accelerate the research process, this is, again, just step one of what Shannon can do to take some of that, that pre-approved spec sheet and turn that into something meaningful that can drive awareness and engagement. As a friendly reminder, Shannon's, again, on a really small team. They've got high content demands. And she's going to, again, need marketable materials based off of this brief here. And that's really where Jasper's campaigns come into play. So effectively, what we're now seeing is that Shannon went and you'll see took that campaign brief that Jasper just helped create. Shannon's applied a voice, and I'll explain a little bit about what this voice entails in just a moment, and is now going to effectively ask Jasper to create a number of different assets for the channels that Shannon's typically publishing to. So perhaps Shannon needs some blog ideas. She needs landing page copy to drive traffic to website. You'll remember Shannon's also responsible for creating social content. And then you might also remember that Shannon works with an external partner to do some of the search and paid ad copy work. But now there's an opportunity for Shannon to start to bring some of that in-house because there's mechanisms and channels to support that in Jasper. What we'll now do is actually pass all of this information over to Jasper. Jasper is popping me open into a new tab. And while this loads, what Jasper is doing is reading through that key messaging brief, taking into consideration the voice that was applied, and is creating the multi-channel content for me just in a couple of seconds here. While that loads, I do want to take a quick sidestep here. And if you'll remember, Shannon works in an organization that has multiple different brands, right? But not all of those brands are going to have the same Subaru style voice. So to help her personalize this content, Shannon's going to house all of the different brands that she writes content for into Jasper Voice. And so when Shannon is writing content for Subaru, like she is today, and I'll give you a sense of what this looks like, that copy is going to be really evoking a sense of excitement and possibility. The brand voice is assertive and direct. And you'll see there's language of conveying a sense of excitement and adventure. So if any of the folks in the audience today are Subaru drivers or Subaru enthusiasts, you really know that really well encapsulates the brand, and folks think of Subaru as a vehicle or a mechanism to get them into an adventurous setting and get them outdoors. And their vehicle is really the catalyst to do so. So we want to make sure that the brand voice really captures that.
And most brands know their brand voice. But if they don't, I mean, you could even, it seems like a really daunting task to figure out, like, what do we sound like? What should we sound like? Couldn't you even use a tool like Jasper to analyze your content to help you create what your brand voice is?
100%. Yeah, you don't have to have your brand voice outlined, but what's great is you can actually upload a body of work that you think really well embodies the tonality that you would want Jasper to try and mimic. And so that can be uploaded through a variety of formats. If you've got just a body of text, you can copy and paste that. or maybe an entire landing page, and you can drop that URL in. And what Jasper does is it scans and analyzes that body of work and then generates something like what we just saw with Subaru. So great call out, Kathy.
And that's one thing I think I've learned over the past few years, just with any tool, is that like my default, just for as long, and people that know me can know this about me, but like I'll wait till the point of perfection. I want something to be perfect, but like with AI, you don't always need it to be perfect. You just need to just get started, and then you can always massage it and iterate afterward.
100%. Yeah. And we see a lot of customers do like A/B testing with voices as well. So if it's not quite right the first time, you can always go back, iterate, change some of the adjectives that are used in that first pass generation, and that can start to get you a little bit closer. I think it's kind of fun to experiment with brand
Yeah.
voice. Jasper can tweak accordingly. Perfect transition actually into when we think about like writing for different brands. Just to give a flavor in Shannon's world, right? If she's writing for Porsche, it's going to look and sound very different, and we want to make sure that Jasper has that context, right? So from writing for Porsche, we want the language to be more descriptive, maybe giving a sense of allure and exclusivity, with more of a focus on sophistication and high-end luxury, just to give you something to compare that Subaru voice to. So very different than the target audience that Shannon's trying to reach today. What's also great to know here, and then we'll jump back into the campaigns, is that ultimately these voices are also unlimited. So if a brand comes with a new line that's trying to reach a new audience, we can come in here, quickly establish a new voice. So it's really flexible in that regard. So maybe there's folks in the audience today that are working on a brand refresh or revamping some old content or copy from their website. We hear this pretty frequently. Jasper can certainly help accelerate that process. Or maybe you've got a broad team with multiple copywriters and you're concerned about maintaining consistency. These are also mechanisms to help with those kinds of challenges as well.
So would this apply also to like different personas? Like if you're trying to reach different audiences, could you do the same thing where like the bulk of the voice is the same, but there are slight differences?
100%. Yep. Different personas, different regions. We can have different voices for different product lines. So there's a lot of flexibility here too. And I would say when we think about, especially our enterprise customers, we bring a lot of expertise and experience to the table on how to configure and think about brand voices and what makes best sense for your business. So that's another piece to just call out. We think about AI expertise. We've got a lot of experience working with customers that have a really unique voice setup for different use cases.
When we were talking during our prep call, and then it came, I knew it would come today, and it did. You know, say you're a small business or a consultant, how could you use voice? How could you, I mean, Jasper as a whole, but I think you'll touch on some things, but like how could voice help someone who doesn't have a ton of different brand, voices they need? How could they use this better?
Yeah, I think when we think about just scaling out more content, the voice can help get you to a final draft faster. So if you're a small team, even if you don't need like a robust library of voices, being able to apply a voice just with the first generation is going to get you a lot closer to that final draft. So that just unlocks more opportunity to, focus on maybe more strategic tasks or a new project that has been in the back of your mind. So there's a lot of different ways to use the voice, but accelerating the content creation, getting you to a final draft faster is probably where folks can start to expect to see efficiency gains.
Okay, one more question. Could you do voices for members of your team?
100%. That's actually a common use case that we see for like ghostwriting. We'll see folks will upload transcripts from, say, their CEO, and then use that transcript to as a voice to ghostwrite on their behalf. So that's another pretty common use case. Good questions. Cool. If there's no other questions around voice, so typically this is where a lot of questions come up, so I'm not surprised there. But let's actually jump into some of the outputs that Jasper's created in campaigns. Shannon's obviously, responsible for web, and so let's click into example a page here. you'll start to notice that with that first draft, Jasper's marketing brain has been pretty active. You'll see this is laid out, ready for SEO. It's got headlines, a nice bulleted feature list, pulling out details about the Outback, subheadlines. You'll even see that Jasper has included a meta title and a meta description. And so while we want obviously this to be as close as possible to the final draft and final output, we do know that there, really needs to be a human involved as well. And there's going to be some level of editorial process. But what's great is that Jasper actually sticks with you through that editorial process. So let's say that, if I'm writing headlines, for example, we often know that we will sometimes need to test. Shannon can come in here and take advantage of some of the presets. So if she needs to quickly translate content, repurpose content, adjust the length or the tonality, we can call on different brand voices here as well, or even improve the writing. We can take advantage of some of these just out of the box, ready to go options for you. But if we need to test specific headlines, we can also give Jasper a really specific task. So let's say I want to tell Jasper to create 3 versions of this. And so we can have, 3 variations just in a matter of seconds, right at your fingertips here.
Cool. And when it comes to the translation, is that something, I think with any AI along the way, you want a human to check it? What is your source for the translation? And is there a process you'd recommend after the translation is complete?
Yeah, we definitely recommend having folks review translation. I think just in general, when it comes to local nuances of different languages, it still does require a human element. You won't find a model that's going to get it 100% perfect every single time. I have to double check on what we're using. We recently switched to a different model to power translations. But important to note as well that while we can translate content just through this Ask Jasper functionality, we can also create content, let's say with English inputs, and we can have the output be a totally different language or vice versa. So there's a lot of different options if you're on a global team and need to create content for different geos.
Awesome.
So far, we've taken a look at a few different things. We've looked at how Jasper can help with the research process, help me synthesize, a large body of work or information. We've taken a look at campaigns and how voice comes into play. But let's say that, Shannon needs to incorporate some imagery here as well, or some visuals. You might remember that Shannon works alongside a graphics designer. Probably to no one's surprise on this call, that individual is also pretty low on bandwidth. And so it might be challenging to get them to take on more work or to even just get in their queue. Shannon knows that she needs to incorporate some more tailored and personalized imagery for the campaign that she's working on. And let's say that she's received a pre-approved stock image from, the manufacturer directly. But again, this really needs to be personalized. Shannon can lean into Jasper's AI image suite to help quickly augment this to help reach her target audience faster. She can again take advantage of some of the available presets, but what I'll actually do for this example is I want to replace this background with something like a rugged, wooded forest with snow, for example. And so while this loads, always like to note here, when we think about Jasper augmenting images, there's many different options aside from replacing the background. We can remove backgrounds, we can upscale images, we can adjust images for different aspect ratios. So a lot of different options that can be done not only in the platform, but also at scale. So if you've got a need to quickly edit, augment images for 100 different products, Jasper's API can help augment those images for you at scale. Cool.
And do you have to watch where you use these from a legal standpoint?
Yeah, I would say the image side is definitely in a bit of more of a gray area. We don't run any kind of legal issues for text. I would say like policy around images is kind of in flux. Anything that you create with images, and typically our approach, because we're using pre-approved images, like images that you own, we don't run into any kind of image generation or like legal issues. But it's a good question and something that we're definitely thinking about. Great. Now, let's say that, word has maybe caught on about all of the great messaging that Shannon's helped create for the Subaru Outback launch. And now her manager has tasked her with creating content to support an upcoming event for, let's say, the Subaru Outback reveal, and that's being hosted at one of the dealerships. Aside from being able to quickly create multi-channel content for a specific campaign, Jasper, of course, can also help folks create one-off pieces of content. And maybe there's a need to get a little bit more prescriptive with what Jasper needs in terms of a context and information perspective to generate that content. And that's where Jasper's ready-to-go templated marketing workflows really start to come into play. So I'll pop open into a new tab here. We'll give this just a second. Let me try it one more time. Got a lot of tabs open. Let's see. Reload. Oops. Okay, let me try this one more time. Actually, let me open just a new document and see if that works better.
Just because we're all staring at you. That's why it's not working.
I know. That worked. So yeah, let's think about the marketing ready templated workflows. Earlier in the conversation today, we talked a little bit about how Jasper's got 100 plus ready to go marketing specific templated workflows at your fingertips. Here's some of those examples, right? If I'm a marketer, I'm coming into Jasper, I can search and browse through some of these workflows and jump through a series of questions that really help create the content and most closely align to my task at hand. But let's actually take a look at an example of this for the event invitation for that upcoming event. What you'll see here, and we can start to pull some of these pieces together. We're writing content for Subaru, so we want to make sure that the Subaru voice is applied. But you'll start to see that Jasper's actually asked me a series of questions related to this event to gather as much context and information as possible. So things like the event details, what the purpose of this event is, who specifically we're trying to target, RSVP instructions, and even information around the new Outback that we want to make sure is incorporated into the messaging here as well. So important thing to note here is that, again, Jasper's prompting me with questions to help generate the highest quality output. And so when I go ahead and hit generate, what Jasper is doing now is taking into consideration all of the details that were provided, the voice that was incorporated, the knowledge article containing all the information around the Outback, and is creating a really highly tailored and specific event invitation that can be used to help obviously raise awareness about the event, but ultimately generate high quality leads that can be handed off to sellers here.
And you can edit all of this right within here. And then does it know, does it kind of get a good understanding of what you change, what the final product is, and does that train on future projects that you're working on?
Yeah, great questions. So short answer is yes, I can come in and take advantage of any of the editorial options that we just talked through or add additional sentences. Important to note, we also do retain version history. So if that's something that you wanted to come and take a look at, if there's multiple eyes on this invite, for example, we can always have that version history retained. And then to your last question around training the models, we actually don't take that approach. So if I'm creating an event invitation, it's not necessarily going to inform like future event invitations. We can always save these inputs out. So if I wanted to reuse this same kind of template and maintain all of the inputs, I certainly can. But what we found is that in the marketing world, things are in flux all the time. We might want to start doing event invitations differently in 2 months, for example. And so there's a lot of ways to not only retain what I've done, but also lean on Jasper and updates to models that power our back end to, generate high quality content for, a number of different use cases, event details being just one of them. Cool. Great question. So we've talked a little bit about how Jasper can help accelerate content. We've shown an example of our marketing ready workflows, and we're really creating this content in this instance to drive registration to, let's say, this upcoming Outback event. We want to make sure that sellers are provided warm leads to follow up on. But speaking of the sales team, Shannon also knows that that channel is an untapped channel that Shannon's trying to engage and take advantage of. But Shannon knows that it's going to be very challenging to get sellers to log into something like a Jasper and utilize some of the content creation options in the platform directly. And so Shannon thought, why not actually bring Jasper directly to sellers where they're frequently working? Shannon knows that the sales team spends most of their day working day in and day out of Salesforce. And so Shannon can actually bring the power of Jasper directly to sellers, and still can control a lot of the marketing messaging that we're handing that sales team. So we can use a similar situation. Maybe we've got an event invitation or maybe a sequence that we want to give our sellers. What we can do with Jasper is essentially hand them all of the event information, the pre-approved messaging, the RSVP instructions, and start to embed that directly in their flow of work, where all a seller has to do is come in and actually generate that content. And what Shannon loves about this is that the narrative is controlled. It's helping to save sellers time, and can obviously really help accelerate their day-to-day tasks of writing emails or following up with prospects, or even just promoting something like this event for this example. Important to note here that while Shannon, is excited and eager to get sellers using and adopting Jasper and generative AI to produce really high quality content, she's actually inspired by iHeartMedia, which is another Jasper customer who's using Salesforce and Jasper integrated to really help scale out their communications across multiple different teams in different regions. And through that project, they were actually able to increase email open rates by 2x. So Shannon's hoping to obviously take advantage of something similar to increase open rates and drive further attendance here. Perfect. So similar to when we think about enabling sellers with tools that can help obviously expedite their day-to-day tasks, important to note that Jasper can also show up in a number of other marketing workflows. So if Shannon's working in HubSpot or a project management tool, or maybe she's collaborating with a peer on Google Docs or Word Docs, Jasper can show up and have all of the marketing ready templated workflows at her fingertips, really wherever she prefers to work. And even if, let's say, Shannon is like following up with a manufacturer, following up with Subaru around some of the details on the Subaru Outback that was just launched, Jasper can help by crafting that email, or can even help by providing some of the same editorial tools directly in email. So if I need to call on some of those voices when writing here, I certainly can. And then last thing I'll note, as we think about how Shannon obviously wants to maintain credibility in multiple different channels, important to note that Jasper's grammar through the Chrome and Edge extension can follow her around really anywhere that she's writing or creating content to flag any kind of, sentence structures that aren't optimized, or flag any kind of misspelled words that I can quickly adjust here. So just a really nice kind of peace of mind, ease of life feature that has helped Shannon in a lot of her communications. But I know that we've covered a lot of information at a really high level today. Just as a quick recap, we saw how Jasper can help obviously accelerate research, create multi-channel campaign content. We talked about a lot about voices and how those can be applied in different use cases there. We showed a glimpse of Jasper's AI image suite, talked about Jasper's ready to go marketing workflows, and then wrapped in and took a look at how Jasper can actually be brought outside of the platform. And that's typically where we see the highest efficiency gains. But ultimately, we've really only scratched the surface of what Jasper can do. There's a lot of different automation options, again, available through our API that Jasper can help solve for and accelerate. So if you do have any questions, I'm excited to hear what those are in the Q&A. And if you got any other interest or would like to see a demo, please feel free to head over to our website. And if you want to scan this QR code here, that will take you directly to our requested demo page. But thank you so much,
Claire. And actually, Claire had that link handy. She can drop it in the chat as well. Awesome. And it's nice because like I said, an hour goes so quickly in these webinars. And the one I saw of Jasper, it was a couple years ago, so things have changed a lot, but it was like about social, it was just so different, so many different use cases. So there's so much more to share. So I'll give everyone a few more seconds to get that QR code if you need it, or grab the link from Claire, and then Shannon, we can just turn off the camera and go through or turn off the presentation and just go through some questions, because there's a lot of them. We've got about 13 minutes to talk about some things.
Awesome.
I'm going to start peppering you with questions.
Awesome.
Let's see. Do you have a page that maybe Jessica or Claire could find, unless you know off the top of your head, that shows your integrations? We've got asked about Sail Through and HubSpot and Workforce, and there were some other ones. Is there an easy place people can find out if there are integrations?
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of times, because our integrations, we work with an iPaaS tool to configure custom integrations. That's how we work with customers today. I know we are working on more out-of-the-box integration, so that'll be a little bit more seamless going forward. But when we think about specific tools, it does depend on those tools' APIs and if they're public or not. So my recommendation would be to talk to someone like me, and we can scope it out and see what our options are. But likely there are some options at least for you.
Okay, great. And can you talk about the pricing model as far as whether you're small business versus enterprise, how many seats everyone needs? What is that structure?
Yeah, pricing, to be candid, is not my strong suit on the solution side, but we do have a number of different pricing options. We've got different like tiered models. So if you're on a one person team, we've got a more like cost sensitive option that's available to you. And then when we think about the enterprise option, I would say have a conversation with sales. We're more than happy to work with you. Pricing depends on a couple of different factors, and how many like custom workflows we might want to build for your team, but certainly have the conversation. And we don't want price to be a deterrent for why you wouldn't work with Jasper.
Yeah, and Jessica and Claire both put the pricing and integrations in the chat. Thank you, ladies. It's super helpful. What about privacy? If people are uploading sensitive information, what steps should they be taking, and what can you tell them about where their data is going?
Great reminder. I actually forgot to mention this in the demo. But one of the biggest differentiators with Jasper is that anything that you're uploading into Jasper, both from like the technical sheet that we saw, any of your voices, all of that stays within your Jasper workspace. So what that means is that we don't use any customer data to train the third-party models that we partner with. So if you're using like a traditional GPT or Claude, and you're uploading sensitive information that could go into their training model, but you have a lot more enterprise grade security when you use Jasper, because we do have contractual agreements in place with our LLM providers. So very important call out. Thank you for asking that question, because I forgot that in the demo today.
Yeah, and how do you, just because you're working with so many of them, you must have a team that that's their job, just to make sure that this is all on the up and up constantly, because things are constantly changing. Yeah.
And furthermore, we We actually have a team that's dedicated to QAing new models. And so we talked a little bit about Jasper being LLM agnostic. So we've got different language models powering different parts of the platform. And so as new models are being released, we have a team that's checking the quality of outputs for new models. And if we notice that there's a consistent model that's producing higher quality outputs, we'll quickly adjust our backend and make that available to everyone. So as an end user in Jasper, you might not know exactly like what model is powering your output. But what you can know is that our team is consistently working to ensure that we've got the best models in place. If new models are released, they're in our system day one. So it's just a great way to have peace of mind that you're using the best available models.
Yeah, absolutely. So John is asking, how do you prevent homogenization of your marketing or voice convergence using Jasper? And I think that just goes back to the talk about like humans are always going to be needed. We hope humans are always going to be needed and all this stuff. So do you have a process or any recommendations on using Jasper, using an AI tool, where the human comes in, what needs to be done, what process needs to be are taken after the content is created?
Yeah. Well, you're right, Kathy. Our, general recommendation is that there's always a human element of any Jasper generated content. We do not recommend just posting or setting up automations for Jasper to push like directly to website. So we do generally recommend that there is a human eye on that. Depending on process, I'd say that generally depends on organization. Some folks like to run approvals through like an Asana or a project management tool, and we can push generations to those project management tools. And some teams prefer to manage approvals and things like that through those external tools. We do have mechanisms in the platform if you're not using a project management tool to collaborate with others on the content that was generated and almost take advantage of some lightweight project management options in Jasper. So you can mark content as ready for review. So you can adjust the status, due dates, and things like that if you don't have a project management tool. But it really just kind of depends on each organization and their own internal process.
Sure. So could you talk a little bit about the difference between Jasper and, say, a Copilot?
Yes. So Jasper really is designed to be, again, marketing specific. So one of the first questions that you asked Kathy was, does Jasper know like what a key messaging brief should look like? I think if you were to ask that same question from a Copilot generation, it would look a lot different. So Jasper's really fine-tuned for marketing. So we've trained our backend on marketing best practices. So I'd say that's the first piece that makes Jasper different than something like a Copilot. Copilots are often like we consider them as horizontal solutions. So they're good at like a lot of different things, but at the surface level. But if you want to go deep into one specific use case, like you want to create like high quality content, Copilot's probably going to struggle with that because it's trained on such a broad set of topics and use cases. So Copilot can certainly get you started, and there's benefits to using a Copilot. But if you want to consistently generate high quality content, something like a Jasper and a purpose built solution will get you closer.
It might not be as good in doing my what's wrong with my Excel formula that like a Copilot. I'm one parentheses off. Maybe a Copilot's better for that than Jasper.
Or like coding solutions. I know like
Yeah.
engineering or IT teams are using Copilots to like identify bugs, and that's a huge time saver, but not as applicable to marketing folks.
Yeah. So if someone is thinking about, onboarding a tool like Jasper, what are some things that should be done beforehand to prep for for this? How can we start getting who in the organization should be involved in some of these decisions, these conversations? What's your best path forward?
Yeah, I see Jess in the chat. I'm sure she has some thoughts here as well. But I would say step one would be to identify some key use cases, or first and foremost, identify what are the biggest bottlenecks that the marketing team would like to unlock, and what does that mean for your business, right? So, like, what are the things that are taking the most time or the most mundane tasks that the team is completing that could be solved through AI, and then just focus on that specific use cases or that 1 to 2 set of use cases when you think about like piloting or bringing on an AI solution. Sometimes when we see customers try and like boil the ocean or bring in like way too many use cases or like way too many users up front, like it's just overwhelming and it can be hard to garner and bolster adoption that way. So we say start small, take a crawl, walk, run approach. And obviously, the Jasper team would be with you there to scale out your usage of AI. There's no like one right answer to that question, but our general recommendation is to start small and then gain confidence and then build and extend to other teams or other use cases. To answer your other question around who's involved, typically we generally recommend working with like a smaller pilot group up front, folks that are really deep in the content that we can get their feedback on the outputs and help them on board with the solution. But it does generally help to have like an executive sponsor that's aware of the project that can help from like a business case perspective as well. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. And I feel like, as much as you would like everyone on this webinar to be your customers, if you don't want them to say like, okay, yes, let's get on board with Jasper and then sit there and be like, okay, we actually didn't use it for 6 months. We didn't know how. We didn't know what we were trying to solve, where we have to do it the other way. Like we're buying any technology. We need to know, why are we looking at it? What needs do they fill? How can they help us succeed? And then that's where you find those use cases. And then you just do more and more and more and more as you find out all these things that can be doing for you and with you.
100%. And it's interesting too, like some of our sales cycles, it's like a top-down initiative where like a CMO, for example, is, recommending to go look at something like a Jasper or explore generative AI. And we have conversations with teams where like those use cases aren't necessarily defined. And so it can be fun to kind of workshop with folks to understand where those bottlenecks are and kind of latch onto that. But there's kind of a wide range of customer profiles that come across our desk.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, I have a few more really specific questions that we're going to try to do some rapid fire in the last 3 minutes. Does Jasper work with Jira?
Jasper can work with Jira. Yeah, we can set up integration options. Obviously, we would want to understand like how we would want to work how you would want Jasper to work alongside Jira. But yeah, there are integration options there.
Okay. If you aren't happy with the style of the output, it's not really what you're looking for, can you retrain your voice?
You can. Yep. And that's something that I think I mentioned this in the demo, but we can work with you to fine tune your brand voice. We can also work with customers to create custom solutions. So if you're, let's say, writing product descriptions or blog posts and you follow a really specific format, the Jasper team can sit down, understand what that format is, take a look at some historical examples, and we can build a custom template in Jasper to make sure that anytime that you're creating a blog post or a product description, that it comes out feeling and sounding and following the specific format that you're looking for. And so that's something that a lot of enterprise brands are leaning into as well.
Excellent. Will you ever be able to export into Word?
That is something that we're thinking about. And I didn't show this, but we do have a Word add-on. So similar to how I showed how Jasper can show up in Salesforce, you can have that same sidebar panel show up in Word docs. So if you're working on desktop or the online version, you can have all of those templates show up in Word, and then the output actually gets pushed onto a Word document. So kind of a different way of thinking about it, but right now that is an option for you.
Excellent. We have 1 minute. Do you have anything you wanted to touch on that we didn't? Actually, you know what I want to ask you? Tell me about how you're using Jasper in your personal life. I liked that story you were telling.
Oh, yeah. There's a few different options. I was telling you earlier, Kathy, I just bought my first home with my fiance. And one of the fun use cases I used Jasper for was to write a letter to the sellers to get my bid accepted or my offer accepted. And so I used Jasper to help write that letter. And I pulled in a really, obviously, like flowery tone of voice to help guide the verbiage there. But that's probably the most recent one where I spent a lot of time kind of fine tuning and tweaking the output. But hopefully that makes sense.
That's really excellent. Well, thank you so much. This was amazing. I learned so much for myself. I hope everyone on the webinar did as well. We're big fans of all your team is doing. So thank you everyone for being here, and we will see you next time. You'll get the recording within the next 24 hours or so.
Well,
Thank you, Shannon.
yeah, thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.